Well, welcome. Tonight we're going to do a little different show on the Milford Youth Center. Normally we have all the youths with us. Tonight we just have two people. It seems odd not to have 1,000 kids in the background, but why don't we start with introductions? Sid?
Sidney DeJesus, Milford Youth Center Director.
And I'm Jen Ward. I'm the Assistant Director of the Youth Center.
So the rumor isn't true that you kept the kids home so you could have more time on TV?
Not at all.
For anybody who doesn't know, this is probably the largest anxiety event of the day for Jen.
I knew that was coming.
You know, house full of kids, taking care of them all. She seems at home. Put her in front of a camera, and all of a sudden she can't eat almonds. So Sidney, first question: what's going on?
There's a lot going on right now. You know, the youth center is going to the renovation is going to begin on September 1st. We're looking to move out by then, and we're at 2527 Congress Street, and that's going to be the new youth center.
You meant October 1st that we're going to start renovating. Are the kids still in the month of September?
No, right now we're currently closed just because we're moving from the current location at 24 Pearl Street to the 2527 Congress. With that being said, we couldn't be open for the month of September for the reason of moving the equipment and the things that we're going to be using at the new location.
Let's talk about the project. So we got the bids in. Question on everybody's mind: is 5 going to become 6, or are we going to stay around 5?
Things look good. Things look real good. It's under 5. We don't know what the renovations are going to look like once they get started, but right now it's looking good.
Were you all surprised at how strongly the town supported the youth center?
I was very surprised. Very surprised. We've been, we've been at the edge of our seats for, since the beginning of time, and now to actually see this happen is, it's a milestone to.
Well, I mean, anytime you spend a crazy amount of money, we're sitting there on 60-odd million for the new school, and then right on its heels, $5 million for the youth center. I mean, I can see people getting nervous.
Of course.
But, we had these discussions over and over where I said, I don't think people are debating the value of the youth center. I think the real question, I mean, you knew I was not for it till you would answer a basic question. Is it the best place for the kids? Can we use Middle School East? Not that I have any love for Middle School East, but you look and you say, there's a town asset. Until we know that we're spending our money wisely, I think a lot of us were holding back, not against anything there, but it took till what, a week before we really got the full story.
Yeah, well, we entertained the idea of Middle School East, but with that, the whole idea is that, at the time, the project's so far away from now, where the youth center needs the attention right now, and where do we put the kids for the time being? It creates, in the long run, it just creates more problems. Middle School East needs its own upkeeping, and we'd just be going over and over the same steps that we've just gone over the last 2 years. And Jen and myself have done a lot of work to have to go over the same steps again.
Well, I think the thing that convinced a lot of us was the configuration. Because waiting 2 years, we're waiting a year now. If you had to, you would have made it work.
We'd make anything work.
And I mean, that was easy. I mean, some of the stuff I got a kick out of, that the youth center was centrally located and Middle School East wasn't. I mean, that was kind of comical. 100 yards apart.
I think that, we kind of chuckled at that too. I don't think that was one of our arguments. I
No.
think it was, kind of spoken out of turn, but I think we combated it with more things that made more sense.
The thing that turned a lot of us was when you sat down and methodically said, here are the programs we have. And the long and skinny just won't meet what we need. And then when you went through it, all of a sudden, it was like, do I want to spend $5 million? Oh no. I mean, I don't want to spend $60 million on Woodland, but it's our kids.
And I think what made us more passionate and emotional, you would want to say, about it was the fact that most people that would ask those questions, we wanted to make sure that they weren't asking it without knowing any of their information on their end. You know, we to some extent didn't feel like we always had to argue it, considering the fact that it was happening every day, you know, with everything being utilized and the different programs. So at the end of the day, I think what we wanted to do was just to make sure that we marketed it in the way that, you know, what we were doing and the positive reasons why the youth center made sense. And I think that's what, like you said, turned the
Well,
tables.
I'll give credit to the kids because they were so well behaved and they behaved so properly that I think that went a long way. It has an impact when you're sitting in that room, you know, with 14 other colleagues at the FinCom, and it looked like something out of, you know, a TV comedy. Little faces and all over the windows, just kind of looking in, but we didn't hear a peep. And that went a long way to not only reflect on the kids, but the leadership. You guys have done good with these kids.
Well, thank you. You know, when people say stuff like that to me, it's just a bad perception that needed to be cleaned up. We have great kids. We have the same kids you see in your neighborhood, and you know, up and down Milford. It's
Well, you know, Sidney, publicly I said, I don't think these kids are any more special or any less special than any other kids in Milford. I mean, we grew up, we only found out when we were adults that we were the bad kids. You know, the kids that came from the Heights and the kids that came from Luby Ave. We were the bad kids. I'm glad nobody told us. Because I'd hate to think that you'd stick, you know, that kind of label on us. Because it kind of affects you, I would imagine, if you keep being told you're the bad kids. We never knew. You know, so when I look at the kids that, you know, we've got a whole group that like to play football. We built a football stadium. We have a whole bunch of kids who like to play softball. We built fields. Soccer, we've got soccer pitches. Lacrosse, we've got fields for them. So these kids that don't play those type of sports all the time just are another group of our kids. You know, they bleed Milford red, they're Milford kids.
absolutely.
And I think the town, I never felt an anti-kid movement. I mean, at least the people I was talking to, we just, you know, I told you, I didn't want to wake up the next morning and say, you know, oh my God, we just spent money and we could have done better by the kids by putting them in a different building. You know, so from that end, I think it all worked out.
I think so, and I think for the kids, for the most part, you know, we understand as adults and running the youth center and with our board and everything that there's obviously a reason why you need to rationalize spending $5.1 million. We understand that completely, and I think the kids, you know, didn't realize the money aspect of it until it got closer, but you know, they started to feel that way. They felt like it didn't make sense to them. You know, we come here every day, we do good things out of this building. You know, why isn't it as an easy answer? And I think that's what made them, one, really to start to understand the issue, but be respectful. And you know, every time we had a meeting, we'd discuss it with them. You know, we didn't want to scare them, but we wanted to explain to them, you know, you have to be respectful and you have to understand that this is for the future of the youth center. And I think they learned a lot from that. But we couldn't have done it without them. I mean, we say that every time.
I don't know that it would have turned the vote against you, but it certainly would not have felt as pleasant of process. And I think it's a great lesson for the kids, that if you go through the system and you work hard and you show, because they were passionate.
Yes, it were.
You know, and it's hard to tell a 12-year-old when they said, don't take away my home. It's not about taking away your home, but it's $5 million.
Yeah. But I think too, you know, any of those kids that came with us, they were the ones that helped us clean that building. They're the ones that helped us put plaster on the walls, fix doors, you know, leaks. So there was more to it from them. It was their place to go, but it was also the place that they helped, only 2 of us and a few part-time staff, help maintain until there was no point of, or the safety hazard became the way where we as a board and as a staff, you know.
And don't get me wrong, I love the passion, but it was a great life lesson for them to learn that you win through the process.
Absolutely.
You know, being on the outside yelling in doesn't get you the votes you need. You know, but who could not appreciate the way they behaved? There was thousands of them out there. You could see all the little faces, and every once in a while you'd see one little face nudged out of the way because another one wanted to look in.
No, we were surprised. I think we were nervous going in because you never know with kids, you know, and we knew how passionate they were. But I think the best part of that whole, especially the finance meeting, when the doors opened and they all came in and gave us hugs, and you know, it was a cool, special moment.
So now on October 1st, the cranes, the chains, the hammers start. It's going to be hard to be watching them. I know it's going to be better. But to see them knock down walls that you've put bubble gum and Band-Aids on.
Well, it's finally here. You know, I've been working for the youth center for some time now, and to actually see the process and the progress that we've made over the last 12, 13 years, you know, we're proud of what's happening right now, and the kids are going to be very proud when they get in there.
And it took 40-some years for me to finally learn that it was urban myth that that balcony was not dangerous to stand on.
Well, it's dangerous now.
Well, yeah, but since we were there in the late 60s, you always, you know, the minute they told you couldn't stand on that balcony, wanted to go there. Dang doors were always locked. We wanted so bad just to stand there.
The kids want to today. It's
You know,
locked
and then to
up,
find out, no, that was just urban myth. There was never anything wrong with that balcony. We just didn't want the kids up there.
Maybe they shouldn't have told you that. You would have tried to
Yeah,
stay
well,
off
by
it,
the time
you
they
know?
told me now I'm 50-some years old, it's too late for me to go stand on that balcony.
Well, if you want to get up there, I definitely open the door. I won't let you get in, though.
No, yeah, now that it is dangerous, yeah, thank you. You got my vote, now, okay, go stand on there. So on October 1st, they start swinging hammers.
Well, that's the plan.
Then what? What's the milestones that are happening inside? Because we're not going to see most of it.
I think that once the project's done, you're gonna be very surprised, and you're gonna see a lot of it, cosmetic-wise, and you know, new walls and new gym floor.
That's what I'm saying, inside. But people driving by, except for repointing, they're not going to really see a lot happening for a year.
No, but we're going to invite them in when it's over.
Yeah,
We're
we'll
going to
have
have
an
a
open
big
house and-
opening event, and I think, you know, as long as the town knows that their money's going to make that building safe and handicap accessible is enough for them to know that, you know, the money is well spent. I mean, we're going to have the roof, the
But if I was to
elevator.
walk in December, what would I see inside? I mean, what's the big milestones that the builders are doing?
Well, I don't know exactly what their approach is gonna be, but I'm assuming, you know, there's a lot to be done. There's a lot to be done. You know, with the entrance of the building, you know.
So the big doors will finally work again?
The big doors will finally be open.
That will be your main, actually, point of entrance for the public, the front entrance.
We'll have the elevator right next to the entrance. You know, the whole entrance is gonna drop about 4 feet. So, you know, anybody on a wheelchair will be able to come right in. And that's important. You know, we want everybody to
So
be
we're
able
going to
to
take
enter
care
the
of the
building.
special needs kids too.
Yes, of course. That's you know, it's been tough to serve them as of now, but you
We've
know,
made it work.
that's what we want to do. We want everybody to be involved. We want everybody to come and enjoy all the programs, not just some kids. We want them all to enjoy them.
I remember, I think it was 20 years ago, when the youth center first came to us, and they asked for support. And I mean, it's public, Mark Shane, and I said, no way, because they kept saying this is only for at-risk kids. You know, we don't want the other kids coming down here. They can go to the high school. And we were open with them, and we said, until you include all Milford kids, and I know I'm a little more sensitive because I was one of the kids who came from the bad area. And just the thought of somebody putting that label on me really annoyed me. Because, you know, they're Milford kids. There's no bad kids. I've never, you know, the most rambunctious, the most troubled kids in the world, I've never had a problem with if I showed them respect. You know, because I'm involved in all the high school stuff, and it always seemed that as long as you showed them respect, you got it back.
Absolutely.
And you know, Mark and I said, the only way we'll ever support the youth center is when you make it the way we remember it. The dances for all the kids.
That's right.
You know, going down there, ball hockey, and I still hated those alcoves. Because invariably, I'll never forget how many times my shoulder would get caught in it. But the memories of that place, it was for all the Milford kids. And my hat's off, because you guys have really made it welcome for everybody. It's not just for whatever definition of kids.
It's for everybody. For everybody. It's for yourself. It's for seniors. For anybody that wants to come and enjoy whatever we're doing. It's everybody's welcome, and I think we showed that.
And we see it in the people, because you think of like Wally Seaver. I was really, really happy last week that I wasn't happy to get ice dumped on me, but over at Harvard Apparatus Regen, the group decided they want to do the ice bucket challenge for ALS. And the proceeds, it's not, you're not talking billions of dollars here, but it was a little bit, and it was donated to Mass General for ALS research in Wally's name.
Yeah.
That kind of thing sticks.
Absolutely.
People remember, especially people who help our kids.
And we've all done the ice bucket challenge. My summer staff, they all were involved in it. Some of our kids. So the awareness is definitely there. And our kids know that too.
Yeah, you know how well loved you are by your staff when they're all vying for who gets to dump the water on you? It's like, yes, this is great.
Yep, exactly.
So the big difference is now, when it opens up in a year, we're going to see floors that don't wave.
We won't have any waves. That's going to be very nice. It's going to be very safe for the kids, safe for programs that are going to be using.
Will the basic configuration of the youth center change?
On the main level,
On the main
definitely.
level.
When you walk in, you're going to be walking in from the front entrance.
Yes.
Like I said, and like Sidney said, the elevator will be right to your left, and then our offices will actually be right to the right, where we're part of our argument with any of the buildings that were brought up or in the current building.
You'd be way down the other end.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where our offices are now, because everyone knows it's an armory. It wasn't built for a youth center, and now the offices will be ideally located right in that central area, so that we can see the gym to the game room to the main entrance.
Even from inside the offices, you'll be able to see out.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you enter, and it's much more, it's not closed off in all these different rooms to the left, and you're going to have the main entrance to the gym much larger, and then you're going to have the nice gym floor that, like you said, won't have waves. And then the bottom and the basement and the second level will be, the walls and have more rooms and everything, but it will be kind of left for more future projects because the main money is going towards the code things with the elevator and the roof and everything like that.
And the water coming in.
Yeah.
Well, come on. Anybody who really believed that building, we were getting it for $1 and we didn't have to put money in, was naive at best. You can't take a building that old and say, look at your house. My house was built 24 years ago, and all of a sudden, all the things that have 20-year life expectancies.
Of course.
Well, I think that's what Brian Murray did such a great job at, is that he was involved in this project from the beginning, and he understood that there was always the knowledge that there was going to have to be money spent later, and that was part of the process, And I think it makes sense that we had to prove that the money would make sense for what we were doing, and that the program was a quality program. It made sense, but without having Brian there to have the history and then the knowledge to work through the town aspects of it, I don't think we would have been as successful. So.
Well, no matter what, whether it be $1 million, whether it be 100,000, that's tax money. When you're taking money from people, you owe it to them to go through every single alternative.
Sure.
And shame on somebody who says, the original thing is, Middle School East won't work. I said, I'm sorry, that dog don't hunt. You can't just say that. You can if you're putting up the money. If I want to buy a coffee with my money, I don't have to explain to nobody. But the minute you're asking taxpayers, and if you think about the history of Milford, my God, we just came up with $60 million for a school. And within the same breath, spent $5 million for a youth center. $65 million, I joke about it, but when I was a kid, could have bought Milford for 65. They would have thrown in Hopedale. Who would have ever thought we'd be spending $65 million in a year?
Yeah. It's priceless for the kids. It's prices for the future that these kids are going to get. You know, we're teaching a lot in that facility.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you don't know which kids are going to be in that facility. I mean, to me, that's the most beautiful part. You can't say it's for kids from this area or only for kids. You know, it's not for Buddhists who worship on Tuesdays, right? This is Milford kids.
Right.
You know, and who knows what programs will end up fitting in there, you know, in 10 years. You know, they got basketball and everything else going on. Now, how did you find a place? I mean, you sit here and you say, okay, we're shutting down the youth center.
Well, this wasn't easy, that's for sure. We've been going crazy for months, trying to figure out where we're going to go. And centrally located, there's not much right now. So with that being said, you know, we stayed looking, and you know, we came across the blue building.
But I mean, it's not just finding a building, because
Finding something that works.
if you found a building, you still have to find an outside area, right?
Well, I think we wanted something that could do everything that we did at the youth center. Obviously, it was part of our argument of why the youth center works. But realistically,
Yeah,
we're
people
never going
down
to get.
south want ice water.
Yeah, exactly. It's. I mean, we understood that going into it, but we also had to run a summer camp program that was fully with staff and kids. You know, so we had a big task this summer, and it was something that towards the end we were, you know,
A little bit overwhelmed.
a little
by it.
overwhelmed, definitely, to be honest. But
with it being, you know, all that being said, we found the place.
and we're
it's
lucky
gonna work.
because they were very willing to help us. You
Yeah,
know,
very willing to
they
work.
heard about the youth center too, and they wanted to make sure that it was within our budget. And you know, when we toured the place, you know, it wasn't ideal at first, but, you know, but we went in there and made a plan, you know, and we have a big enough parking space where we can still have basketball and we can still have outdoor activities. And it's actually, the floor plan allows for all the same game rooms and same programs outside of having a 3-court basketball for the time being. You know, we won't be able to take in as many kids. We have to be realistic about that. It's not the same size, but again, it's a place.
How many kids were coming to the youth center last spring?
It fluctuates. So
Fluctuates.
spring.
So anywhere, we would say anywhere from, you know, 50, 60 kids
In the spring.
in the springtime.
And then it jumps to about 120 to 160 in the winter months and fall when it gets colder.
Where are you going to put 50 to 100 kids?
We're very creative. I have a lot of ideas.
I mean, you've got kids at home. Sometimes it probably feels like when all your kids bring in their friends, there's 50 or 100, but
Yes.
that's a lot of little bodies.
Yeah, we'll make it work. We don't have the gym, but we're gonna have a nice parking lot where we'll still have, you know, some shooting games with basketball. We'll still have four square courts. We're gonna have partial of a skate park, which also gonna open up the doors.
Skate park?
Yeah,
Outside.
we're getting creative here. We're gonna make sure that, you know, we're still helping everybody.
I mean, the parking lot seems big, but basketball, skate park.
It will be structured and scheduled. I mean, people have to.
It'd
People
be a
have to
vertical
understand-
skate park. It's
Oh,
one of
yeah.
those total banana type.
I think we wanted to have the same amount of kids in the same amount of space, but had to be realistic. And I think people have to be realistic with us as well. I mean, we requested space at the schools, we requested space at other things, but there's not space. That was the whole reason why the youth center needed to be fixed in the first place. But we will make it work to the extent that it's safe for the amount of kids and the staff and the area. And then we have satellite programs already scheduled at the Rivera Athletic Center, at different programs, so that we can still run programs that won't be able to function at the location. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely going to be a transition. It won't be the same, but it's at least having a place that kids can go to for the year that it's being
So
renovated.
if you were averaging 50 to 100 kids, how many do you think the Blue House, you know, can handle?
Well, there's a lot of rooms in there. We're still going to be able to take about the same amount of kids that did the arts and craft program. the computer lab, that all stays the same.
Is that like 30 to 50?
Yeah,
It's not
that's-
50 to 100.
No.
No, I want to say about 25.
To 50. It would be the
So
ratio.
where do
between
the
that.
other 50 go? What do you do with them?
Well, that's where we get creative.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the outside programs come in.
Oh, okay.
And we got a state grant for $50,000 that we are.
Thank you, Dick Moore and John Fernandez.
Yes,
Exactly.
thank you very
and
much.
we, inside of that grant, I mean, it was for the purpose of helping during the renovation, which is helping with all of that. And so we're hiring on more part-time staff that will able to satellite the program so that there's not
So
10
that
of
money
Sidney and I.
didn't come with hooks. That was kind of like, I know there's no way you can be as efficient
With the current situation,
having
exactly.
satellites
Yes.
everywhere.
So, I mean-
here's a little bit of money to help out.
And that was great, and it's going to create a lot of opportunities and a lot of more programs outside of that facility. You know, we have the boxing program starting October 2nd, and that generates about 15, 20 kids at the beginning, and you know, it just grows from there. And it's a program that happens all
So
year
talk
long.
the Blue House. Biggest program in the Blue House, and we call it the Blue House, but it's the house next to the Salvation Army
That's right.
building, right? So people know where it is.
Yes.
Congress Street, the end of West Street, kind of right there. Not quite dead center Milford, but awful close.
Very close.
I mean, if we ever did draw a line, you're probably only 300-400 yards or so away from where you were. So it's not, you're not asking kids to go very far from where they used to go.
Well, I would say it's about the same distance from, at least from Stacy Middle School.
Right.
It's probably the same distance now from Middle School East.
So it's
So
close enough.
Yeah, it's going to work for now, and a year goes by so fast.
So biggest program in the new Ute Center.
Biggest program. Well, we're keeping all the programs, and they're all pretty successful, and they're all pretty good
Pick one of the
programs.
biggest ones. You
Um,
said boxing.
Well, boxing's the one that's been there the longest. There's a lot of kids very interested in it. We get calls all the time, when's this program's gonna start? But, you know, they're all just as popular, and
But now, you put kids in a ring. Who's teaching them to box?
I teach them to box. I teach them
Well, that's a way to get their respect.
Well-
You're the director's the boxing coach. Okay.
Well, they know. They know. They know. So I teach the boxing class, and it's all technique and instructional. So, you know, I just
Dad
teach
want to
them the
learn how to run
basics.
fast. Can I
Yeah.
run around and not
Well,
get hit?
That's part of the game. So, you know, every program's very important to the youth center.
Ages of the boxing program.
8 to 18.
Really?
Yes.
Now, there's no like high school or anything for them to go on to, right?
There is no. Yeah, boxing's not in the schools. It'd be a great thing for it to be
I
in the
mean,
schools.
It's always scary. We had I guess the pleasure, whatever, when we were doing a fundraiser when my wife was working with Michael J. Fox to sit and talk to Muhammad Ali, and it was scary, you know, to see him at this point with Parkinson's. And when you think of what that poor man, how many blows he must have taken to the head, how do you help the kids not end up
You gotta
that
be
way?
good. You gotta practice. You gotta practice, and you know, boxing in those days is completely different than what it is now. Muhammad Ali's the greatest of all time. He had a different method of boxing, which is what made him successful. You know, he let his opponent swing till they got tired out, and then he attacked on them.
Yeah, but that
It's
means
not
he
what
took a lot of beating.
Yeah, well, you know, some methods are different than others. I teach them the basic techniques and the instructional boxing, and you know, they pick it up very well. And the name of the game is bob and move. If you can bob and move and get away from the punches, you can
Oh,
avoid
I guarantee I'd get away from your punches. I'd jump over the ropes. I'd be running down the hall. I'd be faster than you. Tell me about another program at the Blue House.
Well, we have the nutrition program that we're going to be starting all over again, and kids love to eat. They can eat us out of house and home.
But we're going to teach them how to do it in a healthy
In a
manner.
healthy way, yeah.
That was a
Eat in
program we
moderation.
had in the past from a previous grant, and now that we have a kitchen, temporary kitchen, again, we're going to bring that back. But the youth council that we run through the youth center is one of our most popular. I mean, we have kids coming up every day asking when it's going to start again. So that's the one that we do all the community events from. So that draws at least 20 kids every Wednesday to our meeting from 3 to 4. And then we're going to have our arts and crafts where we've had a volunteer.
Tell me about the nutrition, because that's become such a hot topic. What do you teach the kids? I mean, I know I'm getting yelled at. All of a sudden, all the good stuff has low vapor pressure. It's gone out of my house. I get home and there's no Oreo cookies there, which I don't need, by the way, but somehow the kids have forced discipline in more salads. I mean, when I grew up, if it was green, it wasn't ripe yet, so you don't eat it.
It's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, well, now you know why I'm so rotund. But now all of a sudden, the kids have a more intrinsic knowledge of what's good for you.
To some extent, I mean, there's a lot to teach kids, especially because it's usually coming from the households and the adults that are a little less aware, and then it happens, it just goes down to where the kids are and their choices that they're making. So, we've tried different policies at the youth center of, you're not allowed to bring in certain things, and it's not realistic to live that way and to have a program sustain. But, we have healthy alternatives, so we teach a healthy alternative, and then we add it as a reward to a program. Whenever we do fitness programs, we have, fruit and water as if you participate, opposed to having snacks and like a vending machine inside the youth center. So that's something that we definitely want to bring back in that type of environment.
And the things we would teach would be, how many cups of sugar is there in a Pepsi bottle? So we'll give them the visual of it. They'll see that a Pepsi bottle's half sugar.
I was going to say, you got 400 grams sitting there of carbohydrate.
That's
It hit me when somebody poured it into a cup.
Yeah, that's visual. They got to see what they're drinking. A cheeseburger. If you see how much saturated fat there is in a cheeseburger, you may not ever eat another one again.
And we had a whole program this summer that we participate with Healthy Futures of Milford and the hospital and WMRC that Rethink Your Drink. So it's the same kind of concept, it's rethinking if you're going to have, a soda every day or maybe soda once in a week, because realistically with kids, it's the same way why we kind of didn't do the policy was you can't bring that into the youth center because that's not a realistic way to live. So I just think that policy and that just knowledge helps kids just choose better options.
But it's all moderation.
Exactly.
You can't do black and white. I mean, my kids are already looking at me saying, okay, in a few weeks you're going to Paris. One piece of baguette. Now, they know I can't go there again. I mean, I used to leave the office and I thought I was getting smart because I'd get home, nice French baguette. I love baguettes. Of course, it's all the wrong stuff to eat.
Of course.
By the time I got home, I had my little stub. So I decided I'd outfox my darling bride. I'd buy a sacrificial baguette. So I'd buy 2. That way I could eat one and come home, and she knew better. So, I'm going to go. I am going to have a piece of baguette, but not the whole baguette.
Yeah.
That's right. That's moderation.
And what we like to do at the center too is sometimes we don't get the kids that are always the part of the organized teams and get the physical fitness that they necessarily should. So we try to, pair it with, understanding the healthy eating aspect of it, but also to be physically active as well. So that it's twofold. So that's part
Well, that
of it.
was always the beauty of having the basketball court and the programs 10 feet away.
Of course. Of
I
course.
mean, even if you're not, because like I said, every group's different. You got kids who really get off on playing chess. They're not going to be the ones throwing javelins on track or, hitting people on a football field or checking people on a hockey rink. But they're no more special or no less special than the kids who do.
That's right.
So, the idea of having all the programs right there. When we grew up, you didn't have anything organized except Monday nights. That was our big night to go down the armory, play ball hockey.
Yeah.
We set up wiffle ball. We made up our own little, fields, and there was no real organized activities like now. So-
Plus, what's also awesome about the youth center is that, we've had kids that come in from the library who aren't part of any type of sports activity, and then 3 years down the road, we see them playing on a basketball team, making a basketball team, or, and it's kind of those type of moments that you realize that it doesn't matter what type of kid or where they're coming from, but they get involved with other kids that they might not really normally get along with or hang out at school, but the youth center they become, and you've heard the kids. It has this type of appeal that just brings kids together in a different way, and then they learn a different activity or hobby, and it's what's constantly kind of happening at the youth center. And
Well, you think of some of the profound statements that came out of the kids. And one young lady, when she said, I like going there because I can be me. You don't have to put on airs. Or, it was always the popular kids. None of us were part of the popular kids. Some kids tried to be. But it was so nice to see a young lady just saying, I'm comfortable being me. And I've met kids who I probably wouldn't associate with. Mm-hmm. I'm a short one, they're a tall one. I'm a fat one, they're a skinny one. I'm a this, they're a that. And we just wouldn't naturally gravitate together. Mm-hmm. But it seems like at the youth center, the tall and the shorts and the skinnies and the fats and the triangles and the circles all just seem to be the same.
We're all the same. We're all the same. Everybody's treated equally. There's, we don't, zero tolerance for bullying, teasing. That's, our motto is just respect. Respect, respect, respect. If you can't respect, then you're probably in the wrong place, because we're going to make sure you respect by the time you leave.
And I think that's the real key is what I see you teaching is to respect yourself, you have to respect others.
Absolutely.
And being in the youth center is a privilege.
It is.
It's not something that you're entitled. You're entitled as a Milford kid to have an opportunity to go there. But once you're in there, you got to be a good Milford kid.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And that's been years in coming too. I mean, we understand we have a good relationship with our kids, but we don't let them get away with things. They've had years in the past where, our policies have begun to change because we're not exactly like you said. This is a privilege to come here, and you need to start respecting it. So we had policies, just like I said, just cleaning with us. Because this is your building. It's not ours. They would pick up on it. They would be reluctant at first, like any kid, but then they started to they were like, we'll help you. They volunteered to help us, and I think that's kind of where the turnaround also happened. When they realized they were going to possibly lose it, they were willing to fight for it and respect it in a totally different way than we were seeing
See,
always.
the youth center reminds me, it used to be Water Street. That was the great homogenizer, because Luby Ave, we were from the Heights. We didn't like Luby Ave kids, or the Plains kids. Go away. This is the Heights. But as soon as you went over Water Street, that hill, to the Hopedale band concerts, I always joked, you turn your hat around. Now anybody who messed with them, they're Milford kids. When we went to Hopedale, blue people. These are red people. It didn't matter what color, shape, size, heritage you were, they were Milford red. So you stuck up for each other while you were at the Hopedale Town Park. As soon as you came over the hill, get back to Luby Ave, this is the Heights. But it was kind of like cousins. And I see a lot of that down at the youth center. That everybody just seems to come together.
The youth center is a melting pot for everybody. You can be the popular kid, like you're saying. It doesn't matter who you are. Once you walk into that building, your popularity is out the door, because everybody in that youth center is popular. Everybody's there for the same reason.
And that's got to help their self-esteem when they go to the high school.
Oh, it does.
Because all of a sudden now you're blended into, 1,200 kids. But now you got 100 more friends, to kind of lean on.
It definitely does. We've seen people completely change, and it's not just we're not taking the credit for it. It's really the kids. Like, I'm amazed, because you see working with kids some of the negative parts of it. Obviously, kids are kids, or you hear stories from the schools. But when you see some kids take in kids that they would never normally hang out with, unfortunately, in a school setting, and then it changed and they bring in the new kid. right away we can target kids that are new to the youth center, and we get some of the regulars, make sure they get involved in this activity, or we'll make sure our staff brings them in. And the next day they're more comfortable, and it changes. But it's
so
the
easy.
kids.
It's so easy. The kids
Yeah.
are the
Yeah.
ones doing this.
Hey, Jenny, that was you 2 years ago. Remember when you first walked in and nobody knew you? Go help her out or go
Yeah,
help him
exactly.
out.
And it works, because I think that's why it works, is that it's not always starting from us. Sometimes when it's us, it's too forced. We can suggest it, but when we have good kids
Yeah, you're
like
old
that,
people.
exactly.
Well, I mean, when we have, let's say, when a new kid comes in, a new kid out of town just moved into Milford, and we had a few of those kids on your last
Yeah.
program. They were new kids. They had no friends in town. They were introduced to the youth center, and it was just magnetic how these kids would come from across the gym because they see new faces, and they want to introduce themselves. They want to introduce them to their friends, and it just makes everybody feel welcome. I mean, and the kids, I'm not telling the kids, hey, come in. They're doing this on their own. This is something they
So
feel
now,
good about.
from an academic point of view, not everybody that walks in there, is Mensa. You're going to get smart kids, challenged kids, right across an entire gradient. What are you doing at the youth center to help the kids academically?
We have good communication with the parents. And if a kid is going down on their grades, parents would let us know, communicate with the high school, honor society students to come in and help the kids.
So you can get a mentoring program going in specific areas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have 2 National Honor Society students that already have asked to come back once we're in the blue building, that offer tutoring 2 days a week for the kids.
Cool.
But we've realized too that that's something that we want to keep growing, and we have a very close relationship with the superintendent. And once this renovation is done, he was part of our strategic planning committee. It was always that if this continues, that we need to bridge that gap, because we're not allowed to know from the schools, that Johnny's doing bad in this particularly. We have to make sure the communication's open if it's allowed, and that's what's kind of changing. We'll have a parent ask, if this is possible, can you not let Jimmy play until he does his homework for an hour? That's happened before, but we
do it all the
also.
time.
But that's just teaching them discipline.
It is, and it's also, unfortunately, we've learned in the last year too, kids that we didn't even realize that were going down that path, and then it's just asking, we just had to ask, and then we were helping him with Spanish, we didn't realize that he had the issue, and then so I think our relationships with these kids allow them to not be embarrassed as much, and they're more open, and then they ask for the help, and then we'll find a way. It might not be Sidney or I or our staff, but we'll find someone in the school department or a volunteer to come help.
I'm sure you could get volunteers if people knew. Because, I'm thinking, kid may be very, very good at one subject. You ask my youngest daughter, and I remember her saying, yes, Dad, you have the grammar skills of a dead cow. It's like, oh, thank you. She goes, if I need chemistry or math help, no problem. But when it comes to English, I'm not going to you. I could see myself struggling, not with the chemistry and the math, but, I'm doing okay in English. But if there was a way of getting me some help, or a kid who's a great writer, struggling in chemistry, because not everybody loves chemistry. And not that, they don't have to be flunking, but the kid who's getting a B, who with a little help could be pushed to an A, if you can get programs like that, and there's enough people in the community who are science-based, that, putting a call to arms, saying, hey, we need somebody to come down once a week, work on chemistry, once a week, work on math.
And that comes, that all comes with communicating with parents, them letting us know that, the kid needs help at a certain subject. It'd be great to get that same communication with the schools. Okay, this kid's going down this hill, and let's bring them back up.
Sure.
And we can, with the school and in the youth center, we can work together to make that happen.
I mean, I've seen it in different places, like at colleges, where I went to Holy Cross, and I got the call saying, we want to teach our kids entrepreneurial skills. Would you come up and volunteer for a month? That's a little excessive. And I said, a month? You know, it's at night. Well, you only have to meet with them once a week. Well, that's easy. Then you get involved. And all of a sudden it became 3 times a week, 3-4 hours a night. But it was all towards a goal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wonder if there's kids there that need help in science. You know, the schools have science fairs or projects. You know, get the community involved. There's a lot of biotech people in the community, chemistry people. And if there's kids interested, to put on an exhibition, you know, put the kids focused on, you know, not just doing the bicarbonate volcano that everybody does, but doing something cool that they can learn along the way.
Definitely.
Those are that's a lot of you know, a lot of our ideas is definitely to continue to grow and offer more to the community.
What are the biggest challenges you face? If you say budget, I'll kick you. Because that we know.
Well, you do know that, and you know, challenges. It goes up and down. You know, you did say finances, but I think that goes across the board. Everybody has those issues.
Yeah, but you guys started from a pretty deep hole.
Yes, we did.
When I think about, was it 3 years ago?
Yes.
You know, 60 grand in the hole, facing a skeptical community. Because when people were sitting there saying, wait a minute, you can't at least come close to breaking even? And you're saying you were going to do it. I remember you saying, give us time, we'll pull out of this hole. And to your credit, how far in the hole are you this year?
We're not in the hole.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you know, it's a lot of work. We don't spend that much.
Yeah.
We spend on programs that we need to have to, you know, educate the kids, to teach them new skills, teach them, you know, give them goals to reach. And you know, we do that all the time. That's just something that's just what we do. That's what the youth center is there for. We're teaching these kids a skill.
I think that moment in history just taught the commission and ourselves and, you know, the town too, because a lot of people were I know we don't always want to talk about it, but a lot of people were unaware of how the youth center functioned and what the situation was. And once the town took the utilities, it kind of let us start from a point where we weren't always in the negative to some extent. But we had to learn how to budget money and how to manage money and to look for money and for grants and for support. And once we fixed our reputation, people were much more willing to help out, and understandably so. You don't want to put your money to something that's going to fail or not running quality programs.
That you don't even understand.
Yeah, and I think once we
And I
proved
think that's
that,
the biggest thing, you know, because for the longest time, the image was just wrong.
exactly.
You know, it's like, okay, there's 50 troublesome kids that we're corralling. Because I remember having some pretty not pleasant words with somebody when they said, well, if we don't have this place for the kids, they'll be out doing bad things on the street. And I looked and said, shame on you. You know, how dare you stick that label? These are Milford kids. I'm sorry, you know. And the biggest thing I got such a kick out of was when some nice little old lady said, I know it's hard for people like you to understand these kids. If she wasn't 80 years old, I think I would have wanted to kick her. But what do you mean people like me? Well, you know, some of these kids come from very poor families. Okay. And some of them are immigrants. They barely speak English at home. I started laughing, right? And she goes, it's not funny to laugh at them. I said, ma'am, I don't want to be mean, but you just described my life. My parents came to Milford. My grandfather had, you know, $32.80 in his pocket. My mother worked for $11,000 a year as a drill press operator in Draper's. We never had money. We were one of the richest families in the world because of what my parents did in the house. Money-wise, no. We're on the bottom strata here. You know, making 11 grand a year. But I couldn't have asked. You know, I think of my little house. It's bigger than the White House in my mind because of everything my mom and dad put in. And I'm looking at this, I'm laughing, saying, I left my home I mean, my mother's 90 years old. I still don't speak to her in English. You know, so it's like nobody understood. And they really didn't understand how many of us benefited from all the people in Milford who didn't know back then that we were the bad kids. We were just another Milford kid. And how important that was. And the sense that it built in us, that we owe all the kids like us to help them out. And that's probably the most exciting thing I see at the youth center, is that people want to help.
And we want to help them.
And $5 million is a good statement of how much the town wants to help.
Yes, it is. You know, there's a lot of memories for everybody. I mean, when you speak of the armory. When you were a kid, we went to
Ball
play.
hockey.
Yeah. Ms. Bontempo went up to the town meeting, beautiful words. You know, and everything that she said, all I kept thinking, I was like, wow, she's describing the youth center. And you guys had it back then, but not to the scale that it is now.
You know, the funniest part was, Sidney, it probably was no nicer. The floors were less wavy. But, you know, when you passed across and it hit one of those planks and the ball went straight up in the air because it wasn't flat. But again, it's, you know, like you think of your own home. Didn't have to be the biggest house in town, but it felt it.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents could build it. You're making the youth center feel like the biggest place in town. And that's something to be proud of. You know? So now the future. What other programs do you want to bring in when you get the new youth center?
You know, it's an ongoing list. You know, Jen and myself, we talk about, you know, what are we going to do when we get back? We don't know exactly what it looks like, but once we get in there, you know, we'll break things down and, you know, figure out what programs are going to fit best
I think
for what we have.
the biggest change, I mean, the programs we want with the kids, you know, it's always going. You know, those are going to continue and grow, and, you know, the possibilities are endless with the gym space and the batting cages and the skate park. We're going to get a boxing ring. Kevin Rudden already promised that he was going to help fundraise, and he, by no means, we're not going to get that boxing ring. You know, so that's going to grow. And but I think with the morning hours and the evening hours that help sustain with rentals and things like that, that's really where you're going to see the change, because it will be accessible. I mean, we
Now,
already
morning hours?
Mm-hmm. We always 3 days a week, 2 days a week for 2 years now. We've had a respite center from Hopkinton utilize the gym.
Oh,
with,
okay.
you know,
I was gonna say, I hope the kids are in school in the morning.
No,
Yeah, well, you know, the
That's where
doors for the walkers and
the
you
senior
know,
center.
not just a gym, but you know, we have a you know, pretty big weight room, and
How cool. So you can get not just kids going in there, but
And
adults
but
to
that's
use.
that's always how it's been, but not to the extent where it's been accessible, that it's been easy for everyone to utilize. Or, you know, we've had people come in that wanted to run out of school, you know, homeschooling programs or toddler groups, things like that. But the building was not safe, you know, or for
Well,
older people
yeah.
or accessible. So, you know, that's where our mindset was, you know, with always being a community center, not just a youth center. It was dual in everything that we did. But the possibilities are going to be endless once that building is accessible and safe. So
the doors will be open during the morning hours to be used. We'll run programs also in the morning. Same programs we run during the nighttime for the kids in the afternoon. You know, we'll have the yoga room, nice room with mirrors and mats. You know, you can do a lot of stretching.
I tried that. I came to the conclusion my body was never designed to be twisted in those ways.
Well, you know, like I said, the doors are going to be open for everybody to utilize the facility.
But I mean, that's really key, because when you start thinking about a community center, yes, we have to take care of our kids, but we have seniors. Now with an elevator, they can actually have access to the whole place.
To the whole place.
That would be really cool.
it will be.
And we get the seniors that help out now.
Oh,
The senior
they're our
program.
favorites.
It's amazing. They always want to come back, and it's always nice to hear that. You know, you guys, we have great kids. I want to be more involved. And
Now,
that's
if I'm
nice.
a resident of Milford, I mean, obviously $1, $5, $10, I can make a donation, and that you wouldn't turn down. What else can I do besides just give money?
You can come in and if you have a skill that you want to offer to the kids, we'll make a program for your science program if you like.
Cool, that would be fun.
You know, there's over the opportunities are endless.
I think that would be, you know, something really cool that, you know, you tell people, okay, if you have a skill and you're willing to come in and, you know, help with whatever, whether it be English literature, you know, boy, even some of us old people could use help in English literature, or art appreciation. I never thought I would want to study art, but when I did, it's kind of cool. Never thought I'd use it. Then I got over to the Louvre and I actually started appreciating. Of course, my Emily then walked me through the Impressionist art and explained all the paintings when she was like 10. And that's when I knew I had to learn more quickly.
Well, we had last year, we had a sign language program that came in. It didn't last very long. The lady ended up getting sick and couldn't continue the classes. But, you know, things like that, we want to teach everything.
Yeah, once we have someone from the community, we're always outreaching to see, you know, for our own programs, but when she just literally came into the youth center and wanted to offer her skills, and then we set up a program. You know, not every program is successful or works, but we always are willing to try it. And, you know, we've had so many different various programs, and a lot of them last, a lot of them don't, but it's just allowing the kids to try something new, and if they like it, we'll continue.
How do people get a hold of you?
Milford Youth Center at Comcast.net is the email to the youth center. Our phone number is 508-473-1756, and you know we live there.
But is it a website or?
Yeah, we have milfordyouthcenter.net where it's up to date, and we send monthly newsletters that tells you everything that's going on to our calendar. I think the easiest way to always get a hold of us is because like you said, there's only 2 of us, so it's to always schedule an appointment. But we have people walk in all the time once we're in there.
But at the end of the day, if I just Google Milford Youth Center,
oh, yeah, you'll find a million things.
You're gonna find it.
we'll find you, and
yeah.
if there's something that somebody can do to help,
Absolutely.
you know, it's always, these are our kids. It's our future. We're talking about a group of kids who are no more special, no less special than a whole bunch of other groups of Milford kids. They all bleed Milford red, and if you can help them out, there's nothing better you could do with your time than to help out a Milford kid. So as always, thank you for what you're doing. We look forward to 6-9 months from now hearing about the new youth center, maybe do a little film tour. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, and we'll have many cherubs, I would imagine, to see Uncle Sidney and Aunt Jen. May God bless. May tomorrow be a better day than today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Not too long since I've been